There are a lot of important things to take into consideration when it comes to employment benefits if you're someone living with a rare disease and considering a job offer. So the first of which, of course, is health insurance. This is just a vital benefit to anyone living with a rare disease, and there are a lot of different types of employer-sponsored health insurance plans out there. So really spend a lot of time deep diving into the benefits catalog about the health insurance options. For example, a lot of companies offer a high deductible plan, which, as the name suggests, has a really high deductible. And then but if there's a high deductible plan, sometimes employers will contribute to that plan, so they'll contribute to your health savings account. And so sometimes, even though it's a high deductible, it might make more sense to actually elect that plan option. Also, there's some plan options that are HMOs or PPOs, and those are pretty different. I think generally speaking, if you have a complex medical condition and you see a lot of providers, oftentimes it might make sense to go with a PPO plan where you won't need a referral to see every specialist that you're going to see. So also another thing to take into consideration, a quick formula to figure out maybe what your health insurance cost with a particular employer might be is to take the premium, multiply it by 12. And then you add that with your out-of-pocket costs, so that the out-of-pocket maximum, which is usually provided in the list of the benefit information. So if you have, you see a lot of doctors, you get a lot of scans. A lot of times people will hit that out-of-pocket max. So that can be one way. That's the way that I use, because I do have a lot of appointments and scans throughout the year to figure out what my health costs might be and how one plan measures up to another plan. I did mention a health savings account, and that is another thing to take into account. If you have a high deductible plan, a lot of times there'll be the option to contribute to a health savings account or an HSA. These are really great options to help save funds for healthcare related costs, but you can only contribute to them if you have that particular type of plan that allows it. And what's great about an HSA is you can contribute to it and keep those funds year after year if you don't use them. But there's also an alternative. So if you don't have a high deductible plan or a plan that allows for HSA contributions, there's something called an FSA. And it essentially works the same way. It's pre-tax dollars that you contribute to an account, and you can use them for healthcare related costs. But sometimes there are some limitations. The FSA can only be used in the plan year, so you can't just contribute and save those funds forever. And sometimes there are certain other stipulations. For example, if you have an HSA and you also open up an FSA, you might have a limited use fund where you can only use it on dental or vision related healthcare costs. So all important things to take into account. Again, health insurance is such a big one. So really spend the time adding up the costs there. Another thing is disability benefits. So some companies will offer short-term and long-term disability benefits. So if you would ever need to go out on leave, that you might be able to get a percentage of your salary. But something to keep in mind is that some disability plans have medical lookbacks or pre-existing condition clauses. So I know with the Affordable Care Act, we're not seeing pre-existing conditions come into play so much when it comes to health insurance these days, but it still can come into play in these other areas, and disability benefits is one of them. So definitely take some time to see if there's a medical look back period or pre-existing condition exclusions that are related to your disability plan. And then similarly, life insurance, pre-existing conditions can still come into play here. So a lot of companies will, give you a certain amount of life insurance and then allow you to contribute beyond that amount, or pay for extra of a life insurance plan. But a lot of times these policies will have will be medically underwritten, which means that they will get to do a look at your medical history before saying yes, you can have this extra plus up of a plan. So take a look. Often you can contribute up to a certain amount when you're first enrolling into your employer's plan without it being medically underwritten. So for me personally, even though I'm a single person, I do have a little bit higher life insurance because I know if I were to go and apply now or add additional, amount to my plan, that it would be medically underwritten. So I sort of try to start a little higher when I start a job because I know I won't be eligible to add later on, which is not the case for folks who are healthy. And then one other benefit to take into consideration is sick leave. A lot of companies have switched over from offering dedicated sick paid time off to just offering, a larger amount of personal time off that you can take. And so, again, you just have to really take a look at the leave policy. So, if you get a lot of PTO time off, then it may be okay that you don't have dedicated sick leave. But if it's a small amount of PTO that you'd have to use for your vacation time as well as for doctor's visits, or if you're not feeling well, that may really be a deciding factor in whether or not the job is the right job for you. And do take all of this into consideration, the whole package. These things are important for folks living with rare disease, and perhaps in some cases even more important than the salary. So do bundle that up into your overall, package and decision making, and you can actually use some of these things to negotiate for perhaps a higher salary if your health insurance costs are going to be a lot higher at this job. So again, all really important things to keep in mind as you're looking at the benefits for a job.